Hello and welcome to Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Podcast. I am your host, Gary Howard. And if this is your first time listen, if you're a return listener, first of all, thank you for returning. And if you're a first time listener, you came across me by mistake or whatever you came across me by, I am a truck driver for Prima Express. I travel to 48 states, continental United States. I know there's 50 states, but I don't drive to Hawaii and Alaska, of course. And during these days, I stop at truck stops for my 10-hour breaks. So, on this, I will tell you about the truck stop and about a murder that I found nearby by that truck stop. I try to stay within about 50 miles of it because there's a couple that happen at the truck stop which I will get to eventually, but I try to stay within 50 miles. Now, my initial idea was that I'll do every day work, at the moment at the truck stop I'm at, where I'm staying at, like what I'm going to do today. But I found out that's very hard to do if I want to get a lot of information I can about it. So one day, stop and then try to absorb get all the information and then record. It's just impossible. There's no way. I mean, I can just look up Wikipedia, but if I want, in depth so you get all the information, there's no way I could do that. That's why I've had so little episodes out since I started last year. I do try though, why I started Monday Murder Mill. I figure that way I could get an episode out every week and still have something. But today I'm going to try that theory. I'm going to see how well I could put out an episode where I'm at today. I'm doing a reset down here in Tennessee, not too far from Midway, Tennessee, at the Love's Truck Stop. And I found an interesting case. But without further ado, let's talk about the truck stop. I'm currently at Bulls Gap, Tennessee, and am at the Love's Truck Stop, which seems like a fairly new truck stop. I'm on the all the information I'm about to give you is from Trucker's Path. So this is one of the places I've done one before. What I couldn't do like a Google Earth of it, because if I do a Google Earth, it's just going to show an empty field. So it's a fairly new truck stop. It's Love's Travel Center on exit 30 and I-81, Interstate 81, like north from Morristown, not too far from Midway, Tennessee, where I had dropped my load off. And the sick perverts don't be. I delivered my freight, not dropped my load. I didn't drop no load. My wife's in Texas, so. But yes, I-80, Interstate 30. It's a new one. It's a nice truck stop. 3 point. It says a 3 point rating on a 5-star review, 36 review. So it hasn't been open very long. It has 8 lanes. It's 109 parking spots, 7 showers, which is I had got the shower. Like I said, I'm on a recess, so I did my laundry, took a shower, and all that good stuff. And it's a nice place. The address is 10465 Lonesome Pine Trail. It says Mosheim, Tennessee, Mosheim, but that's what what I told you about the other city. That's what the weather guy said. Weather. I have a weather app on my phone, so I know what the weather is. So, Mosheim. But yeah, it's a nice truck stop, not too bad. But as for food wise, there's really not much of an option for food. You have the Love Truck Stop, and I'm gonna go through this real quick. I know some of y'all. I don't know. I've asked this a few times if I should leave the truck stop in or out, but I have not got no feedback on this. So I'm going to continue doing it. But as for food, you have your regular Love Truck Stop stuff, any kind of truck stop, like hot dogs, the roller hot dogs. But they have Arby's here. Now, if you want to travel across the interstate, there's another truck stop there. It's a small, like a gas station. They do have a little Caesar's Pizza there. So if you don't want Arby's and you do not want that whistle there, but if you don't want Arby's and you don't want the Love Truck Stop, and you just drive across. Well, I walked there. I got me a pizza, and it's not too far. It's about I would say half a mile across the interstate. Then plenty. You don't have to walk on the road. There's plenty of walk place. Plus, with my little tubby self, I need to get a little exercise. But yeah, they have a little seats. There used to be a restaurant across the street from there, but they don't have. That's not there no more. But yeah, let's go with the review. So like I said, it's a 3.8. The food is 3.9. Parking is 4.1, which is plenty of parking. Showers is 3.8, which they did have a pretty decent shower. All out service is 3.9. Outside this one guy who says that his tire got stolen. Well, let's see some five. Well, first off, is a 5-star review. Very nice truck stop. Will definitely be back. Arby's is the only restaurant, but of hot dogs, fresh sandwiches, fresh fruit, super convenient shower, and huge and very clean. Tons of parking spots. 5 stars for sure. I said 5-star. Here's a 4-star. Location was clean and the staff was super polite except for the manager that was running around with a grin look on his face and not greeting the customers. I guess he didn't say hi to him, so he got butthurt. But the lot is big and plenty of parking. Bathrooms were spotless, and there's an Arby's for everyone in the mood for fast food. So, yep, excellent showers. Here you go. My biggest 1-star review. My biggest complaint about the store is the laundry room. They only installed 2 washers, yeah, and 4 dryers. Currently, only one washer works, and none take a card. It's been this way for the last several months. Which I did my laundry here, and he is correct. There is only 2 washing machines, but you can get change. I got change there, so all you gotta do is get $2.50 for the quarters. Now, as for the dryers, I don't know. As long as you have 250, I think the dryers did work with card. So if you want to use card on a dryer, just get yourself $2.50 a change. That's what I did. Well, I paid for quarters on the dryer too. So ever since I got charged double at a Coke machine, so they charged me the amount for the Coke and also treated like an ATM and double charged me. I don't use cards at the machines no more. And here's another 1-star. Love never fails with lazy employees, which I'll disagree with them. These people seem like they're working their asses off. And this guy, no showers, no laundry, no water. Well, that's not. Why would you give a 1-star review? It's not their, you know, they can't control the water. If it's a mainline water, they have a mainline issue. How is it Love's fault to give them a 1-star review? Another person 1-star review, 1 star, and one more. Not sure why or how long, but the showers and laundry. Yep, again, people complain because, like I said, it's if it was a main water line, like if they have a main water line here, because there's really not much around here. If anything happens to it, how's it Love's fault? But whatever. But a lot of people are complaining about that. One guy, restrooms was nasty. Several stars had no toilet paper. Only one of the toilet roll dispensers had anything. But that was 6 months ago. Maybe he just came in on a bad day. But one of the guys who gave a 1 star on the services said they stole his spare tire, and then there's no way I could say they didn't or they did. Maybe he had it stolen before he showed up. But anyhow, there's the Love's truck stop. Now, as for the case that I found not too far from here, it happened about 7 miles from here, and I don't think I've ever heard of this case before. But I'm gonna do my best to do this, because all the information. This is a one day, and I try to try to cram as much information as I can on this case. But and hopefully I say the names right. But Lillelid, Lillelid, Lillelid murders happened just north of me. Matter of fact, but yeah, the Lillelid was Vider, and the Delphina Lillelid, who one is from Norway. So let's talk about them. There had been a long one for the family. So Vider and Delphina Lillelid has spent the Sunday at the annual Jehovah Witness Assembly. And when I found this case that was not too far from me, let me side note, when I was Jehovah Witnesses, they'll do anything to get people to their whole thing is to witness to people. That's why Jehovah Witnesses. And side note, when this is a side story away from all this, but when I was in Ohio, like right north of Cincinnati, I was driving 65. Anybody knows of seeing semi trucks, they know that the window is super high. So this car came next to me, trying to get real close. I didn't know what he was doing, but to come to find out, who I believe was Jehovah's Witness was trying to hand me Bible literature. while doing 65 miles an hour down 71. But I had luckily I was exiting because that guy was really wanting me to give this literature. I know he would want to meet his Lord and Savior, but I wasn't the one who was going to meet up to set the meeting. But anyhow, but yeah, that's how these were. I think this is what happened with this individual, which as I'll get into the story. But yeah, Vidar and Delphina Lillelid has spent the Sunday at an annual Jehovah Witness assembly at Freedom Hall in Johnson City, where members of the faith from across East Tennessee had gathered for fellowship, Bible study, sermons, and prayers. The year's assembly had focused on Isaiah 54:13. All your children shall be taught by the Lord, and great shall be the peace of their children. A focus, as always, had been importance of bearing witness to friends and strangers. So, witnessing the story of Jesus Christ was what they were planning. Their whole basis of this meeting was. So Vidar, 34. Let's talk a little bit about him. He had moved to Miami from Norway a decade before. Delphina, 28, the New Jersey-born daughter of Honduran immigrants, met him there. They married in 1989 and moved to Knoxville after their daughter's birth in search of a more peaceful place to raise their children. Without the drugs and violence of a big city, a hiking trip in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park convinced the couple they found the perfect place, which I agree with them. It is beautiful. If anybody has not been to East Tennessee, Dollywood is there, Knoxville, Tennessee is there, Rocky Top Mountain and all that. It's really nice here. I would love to move to East Tennessee. It's very nice, even though my family is from West Tennessee, Selmer or Pocahontas around the area. But all Tennessee is beautiful. I was just sitting there thinking today, if there is such a heaven and a hell, I do believe heaven kind of emulates Tennessee because it's nice here. If I ever do move out of Texas, I think I like to come here. But anyhow, they lived in East Tennessee for about 2 years when Peter was born, the youngest one. He was born in 1995. The week ahead had promised to be busy. Vidar. His name is Vidar. I do apologize for some of these names. I feel bad, Vidar. But like I said, I try to cram as much information as I can. I'm just trying to see if I can actually do, because like I said, this was my initial plan to do once I stop at certain truck stops to talk about the truck stop I'm currently at and in case buy it. So I'm gonna, I guess, test the waters to see how it is and let me know what y'all think. If you're listening to this, tell me yay or nay. I'm always up if it may positive or negative. Any feedback is better than no feedback. So Vidar had to be back to work for his job as a bellman at the Holiday Inn in Cedar Bluff in West Knoxville on Monday. And they were not a very rich family. They were just barely making it by, but they were happy with it. A lot of people of the church helped them out, so they were very positive. So if they need any help, a lot of times the church will help them, but they were managing the best they can. Because Delphina was a housewife. She had chores to do and homeschool lessons to be prepared for the children. The family had moved 6 months ago into a rented 50-year-old home in the Powell community. The children's first taste of the outside an apartment complex. So their whole life they were living. Besides, this is the first house they actually lived in. The house needed some work, and the parents had finally saved up enough money to buy a swing set for Peter and Tabitha. They hoped to renovate the upstairs into an apartment for Delphina's mother, and in just a month, mother and father planned to fly to Norway for the first time with the children to visit Vidar's relatives. Some friends invited the Lillelids to stop for dinner on the way home, but the couple's weekend cash had ran low, and more big purchases were coming up. Vidar turned them down, and the family climbed into the van, a cream-colored 1987 Dodge, and headed south on Interstate 81. Just before 7:20 p.m., the van pulled into rest area at mile marker 41, halfway home. So the rest area is about, like I said, I'm exit 30. This was about 11 miles north of where I'm at right now. So while this was all going on, let's bring it into another person involved in this, but Natasha Cornett. So she wanted to get out somewhere, somehow, no matter where. So life had revolved around conflict, rebellion, and escape since the time of Cornett turned a teenager in the southeast Kentucky town of Betsy Lane. She starved herself to look thinner. She slashed her arms with razors and licked the blood. She wore black, pierced her eyebrows, read books on witchcraft, and called herself Satan's daughter. At age 14, she threatened her mother with a knife. The mother tried in vain to find treatment for her. Cornett told her friends she talked to angels and demons since age 4. She wrote about apparitions in her diary and gave them names in between fantasies, violence, and tantrums against her mother. Tyrannies against her mother. She tasted life away from home a couple times, matter of fact. The first came when she was age 17 in a ceremony where the bride and her maids dressed up in black and wore chains. The marriage ended less than a year later when her husband dropped her off at home and said later, dropped her off at her mom's house and was gone and never returned. So drove away without a word. A second came a month later when she and her friend drove to New Orleans and lived on the streets before coming home. She told her friends she wanted to go back and that she dreamed of living out one of her favorite movies, which was no other than Natural Born Killers, which, if you ever hear, a lot of serial killers really base their lives and whatever they do on this movie. Basically, because they just went around the streets, the highways, and around the country killing everybody with no ramifications. Now, I have not seen the movie yet, and if I did, it's been so long ago, I don't remember it. But to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen that movie. But it's Oliver Stone's Ode to Mayhem about a pair of lovers who leave a trail of bodies on their way to the Mexican border. And the idea came up again during a Friday night party of drinking beer and getting high in a room at the Colia Motel in Pikeville, Kentucky on April 4th, 1997. Most of those in the room had known each other since high school, staying on and off, staying on and off with Cornett and her mother's trailer, which her ma said that she didn't know during the trial hearings, which was come later on, which I haven't got to. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But she did not know where if they're what they were doing. She said that was, Natasha's area in her bedroom. She just didn't bother. So she says that there might have been drinking going on there. She didn't know. So Karen Howe, a friend of Cornett's, called her soulmate. So this is when she came in friends with. By the way, her mom's name is Madonna. I thought was funny, especially in the mid '90s when Madonna was. But yeah, her mom Madonna. So she hooked up with her friend Karen. Back to Natasha, she had became friends with Karen Howell, who had the same similarities with her with the manipulating stuff. Says she was her soulmate. Shared a fascination with the occult and stories of childhood visions and sexual abuse. So let's talk a little bit about this Karen woman. So she had claimed that she had been molested by her dad growing up. And like I said, so Karen Howe, 17, was born on September 25th, 1979, in Delaware, Ohio. Her family moved to Kentucky when she was 3 years old, and early childhood was characterized by several violent fights between her parents, and until they divorced when she was 9 years old. She was recorded of having a borderline, IQ of 78. They had put another word in the notes. I'm not going to say that. Howe claimed that she had been sexually abused between the ages of 5 and 10 by her paternal uncle, and a cousin, and described herself as fearful of relationships. By age 13, she began the practice of self-mutilation. Howe lived with her mother until she was 14, and the relationship was stormy as the two often fought. Howe had a history of resistance to rules and regulations, dysfunction in school, illegal drug usage, runaway behavior, and intense interest in witchcraft. The later pursuit began when her use of a Ouija board and the automatic writing, evidence of which her mother found, which was if she'll think about whatever, like she'll like try to talk to like different spirits, and she'll write out what the answer would be. She'll ask a question, and she'll write out. Therefore, bringing in also so with that, her mother found all that stuff. So bringing in and ministers who attempted to cast out the demons from her daughter. Howe claimed that she had created love spells to get two boys to date her. Of course, that failed, and that she heard voices. She moved in with her father briefly after her first semester in high school, although her father had rarely communicated with her. After Howe dropped out of school, she moved back in with her father and continued to earn her GED. By her early teens, she began to abuse in various drugs, particularly LSD. She claimed to have had a bad trip where she half-heartedly tried to chew her friend's arm off. Of course, that probably wasn't a very good party atmosphere after that. But otherwise, had no history of violence nor criminal record prior to the murders. Howe reported that she had attempted suicide 4 times in the past, twice by cutting her wrist and twice by overdosing on drugs. She had met Natasha Cornett and her boyfriend Joseph Reisner, which I'll get to. At school, Howell was a minor at the time of the crime, which again, but she was saving for a car actually when it was all going on. So Natasha was at the when this all was going on when the Lillelids was at the arrest area. She was 18. She was born in Betsy Lane, Kentucky. She was I probably said this already. She was the product of a fair and grew up in poverty. Cornett had been a polite and good student until 6th grade. When her academic performance declined, she left school before completing the ninth grade, and no history of employment except babysitting. Cornett started using alcohol and illegal drugs, including heroin, ecstasy, and cocaine at the age of 14. She was arrested for forgery due to theft of a box of checks and sentenced by the juvenile courts to 1 year probation. Cornett was arrested a second time for assaulting her mother, Madonna Wallen, was her name, and threatened her with a knife, but her mother dismissed the charges. On her 17th birthday, she married Steve Cornett, but the marriage, that's the name of the individual. Of course, that's the guy who decided I am out of here. So at the back to where I was at, she says she was her soulmate, shared a fascination with the cult and stories of childhood visions of sexual, cult. And Dean Mullins was dating Cornett. Before let's talk about all these. So yeah, Dean Mullins was dating Cornett. Joe Reisner had dated Cornett, and now Howe. So let's. There's 6 individuals altogether. You have Natasha Cornett was there. She was 18. Karen Howell, 17. Crystal Sturgill was 18. Dean Mulling was 19. Joseph Reisner, 20. And Jason Barnett. These will be known as the 6 who was at this party going on right now. So let's talk a little about these individuals before I go into the whole thing. We already met Karen and Natasha Cornett. Well, let's talk about the other individuals. Let's talk about Dean Mullins. Edward Dean Mullins, 19, was born in 1978 in Harrow, Kentucky. He had left school in 1996 during his 12th grade year, but was working on his GED. Mullins had no criminal record and had been employed at a grocery store in Pikeville, Kentucky, and his in Kentucky in 1980, 93, and 94. Mullins' family and friends stated that his behavior worsened after becoming involved with Natasha Cornett, whom he had planned to marry. And as for everybody else, a lot of people was baffled by his interaction with her because she was in the cult black, where he was a big churchgoer. His dad will later say on stand that every time the church's door was open, he was there. He was always in church. Well, I guess it was one of the things where his parents really forced it on him. So he was looking for a rebellious, and this is how he found it with her, with Natasha. So another person, Joseph Reisner. Joseph Lance Reisner was 21, oldest one of the group, was born October 13th, 1976 in Hazard, Kentucky. He never met his biological father and adopted his stepfather's last name. His family lived in Columbia, Kentucky, but moved to Georgia where he started fourth grade. Reisner was described as a good student with a good work ethic until the separation of his mother and stepfather, which affected him emotionally. He and his mother moved back to Kentucky where he had history of marijuana, alcohol, and LSD usage. He claimed he had sexual relationships with two of his babysitters, and when he was 12 years old, Reisner acad- you know, declined academically, failing seventh grade and eighth grade before his grades improved in 10th grade, which he completed at Betsy Lane High School, where he met the other perpetrators, including his girlfriend Karen Howe. Reisner joined the U.S. Army in June of 1995, but received an administrative discharge after testing positive for marijuana. He earned a GED May 29th, 1996, and was accepted at the Mayo Regional Technical School in September 96. So he was the oldest of the group, and at the time, he was actually on spring break while this was going on. Now another one, the third girl of the group, Crystal Renee Sturgill, 18, was born on March 13th, 1979, in Harrow, Kentucky. Her mother, Teen Blackburn, refused to divulge the name of her father, and his name does not appear on her birth certificate. She was in her senior year at Betsy Lane High School and also attended Floyd County Technical School in Drift, where records indicated she had been a slightly above average student. Sturgill's academic performance declined in high school, which she blamed on drugs and alcohol. However, she performed well on standardized tests, including a total score of a 28 on the ACT, which I'm not for sure if that's good. If anybody knows that, please message me. Let me know what is the scores between that. I didn't look that up. So hopefully maybe somebody will tell me. And had applied for admissions to several colleges. She worked in Betsy Lane Elementary School daycare as a part of a co-op program where her supervisors believed Sturgill, Sturgill. If I can't pronounce the name, I'll just spell it. Was a capable child giver, and she received very high marks. Sturgill had no prior criminal history, either as a juvenile or adult, but had been suspended from school several times. Observers committed an amount of emotional neglect Sturgill suffered in her home, and in December 1996, she accused of her stepfather of repeated sexual abuse. After the accusation, she had moved to her aunt in Prestonburg and been attending Prestonburg High School in January 1987, but soon had moved out. Of course, she had moved out because a lot of people did not believe her, even though he had admitted to it. Nobody really believed her. So she lived, approximately 13 different places from the time she made allegations in December until the shoot. Well, we're about to talk about happened. She had moved in. She had was good friends with Edward Mullins and was critical in the relationship with Natasha Cornett. So she had moved in with Natasha at the time. So, and one more person I think we have, and it was the youngest one, Jason Blake Bryant, 14, was born July 18th, 1982, in Heller County. Had IQ of 85, so he was not a very smart individual, and emotional social skills of an 11-year-old. He had a history of alcohol and drug abuse, so I think once he became, because of the women that was involved, he probably thought that he might get laid. I'm guessing, and they were just looking for some muscle. And he was a crazy bastard. So at the time, like I said, a lot of these people were really sticking with their own kind because this was like in the 90s. So like I said, with the way Natasha was living her life, well, which was not wrong. I probably was living my life the same way. So I'm using that word wrong, but she was like in the goth style. A lot of people in the South probably was not accepting that. So they're kind of grouping together. So begin at his early age of 3, and back to Jason Bryant. Begin at the early age of 3, and was in 8th grade at Miller High School in Pike, Kentucky. He had, wait, I don't know, early age of as a 3. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But I'm just reading my notes. In Kentucky, he had met Natasha Cornett in Pikeville, Kentucky, a month before the murder. Bryant, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Bryant was the youngest of the group and a minor of the time. So there you go. There's a little bit about Natasha, Karen, Crystal, Dean, Joseph, and Jason. These were the individuals that was at the hotel. So Jason Bryant was the youngest of the group and had been a probation as a runaway when Cornett picked him up from a street corner, offering him cheap bourbon and kisses. Like I said, he routinely lied about his age, so they probably they might have thought that he might, because he did look like a big boy, so he could have probably passed as for 17, 18, but even let Cornett carve his initials into his arm to show him that he was not afraid. So news reports and word of mouth later told that satanic rituals was attempted to burn 666 in the motel room carpet, but that was never verified. The prosecutors believe Cornett birthed the plan there for a Mexican-bound murder spree. So they were planning on heading to Mexico and just doing chaos, like kind of like I said, the National Born Killers. But their initial plan was just go to New Orleans because that's where Natasha wanted to go because she liked it the first time, and that was their initial plan to go there. So witnesses say Cornett cried, and the commission where Howe was fighting with her mother, hating life in Kentucky, and wanting out. Reisner, the oldest of the group, 20, on spring break from the local tech center. There he had taken trade classes. After earning his GED, he had a car, a Chevy Citation, but it was registered to his mom. Keep in mind that car. Registered to his mom, so he was up for the trip. Let's get the hell out of here. Well, since I said it enough times, I'm gonna let you know something good don't happen. Obviously, since I'm talking about it on this show. But yeah, he said, "Let's go." So while it was all going on, Cornett's mother was actually, Cornett's mother later told the police how the six came back to the trailer from the motel on their way to a bonfire. Natasha and them had said they were going to get started. Listen to this. Natasha and them had said they were going to go start the Armageddon. Again, the coming back of Christ, and they're going to get the Armageddon going. She recalled Karen turned around and looked at me, and she said, "The end time is coming." And I said, "Oh, that is it?" That's all she said. So we got an idea what the Lillelids are doing. They're at the rest area. And these people, they're getting ready to go start Armageddon on their way to New Orleans or to Mexico at the time. But they eventually changed their path to Mexico. But as of right now, they're heading to New Orleans to start their new life in their broken down half-ass Chevy Citation. Keep in mind there's six of them. Citation is not that big of a car. So back to where the rest area in Tennessee here. At the rest area in Baileyton, Peter Lillian was restless and crying from earache. So his father took him for a walk. Delphina and Tabitha headed to the restroom and stopped to chat with a friend, Karen Sinclair, who was heading home from the assembly with her teenage daughter, Kara. They talked about the weather, the ride home to Knoxville, the week ahead. As the women walked in, Natasha Cornett and Karen Howell walked out. By the way, this is the second time I've spent some time in Knoxville. Last time I was in Knoxville was last week, where my truck had broke down. And some people say it's karma. I don't know. If you go to my website, why are you deleted the post? And I'm not going to tell you what it was, but just say I was making fun of some people that maybe I should not have been, even though I think they got what was coming to them. Maybe they didn't get, but they should. But my truck broke down for a few days after that. So I was in Knoxville for a couple days, and now I'm doing a reset. So back to our story. That was a little side note there, but I'm back here for another reset down here, not too far from Knoxville. So Joe Reisner smoked this back to the rest area. Joe Reisner smoked a cigarette at the rest of the truck group. Let me. I guess I'm back to my non-talking self. Joe Reisner smoked a cigarette as the rest of the group milled around the vending machines. He knew the car wouldn't make it further. Like I said, so the hatchback can't run well to begin with. It could barely hold 4 people. Now it's carried 6. The group has stolen 2 guns, a 9mm and 25 caliber, and some cash before leaving Kentucky. The the theft had put them behind, adding up to a late start that afternoon. He caught a speeding ticket an hour ago when a trooper stopped him through Gate City, Virginia. Now I've also heard that it was in North Carolina, either or, but they got stopped, but the police did not check it. And if anyone, parents, police, or otherwise, had started looking for them yet, the car wouldn't be hard to find. He and others talked about finding a car to hotwire at the rest area, but too many people were around. So Vedder, Lillian, and Peter stood by the door to the visitor center as Cornett and Howe walked out. Vider, who always kept a religious pamphlet, like I said, Jehovah's Witness is always talking about ready to put it out, kept the religious pamphlet handy in his pocket and looked up and smiled. He said, "Do you believe in God?" he asked. Cornett shook his head. "No," she said. "God never answered any of my prayers when I needed him." Reisner had seen the family step out of the van moments earlier. He and Bryant walked up to Vedner, pulled out a pamphlet. And while this was gone, this was when Natasha was talking to her friend Karen and said we should steal that van. And this is when their whole plan started to come together. So when Reisner testified later that he had a pretty thick accent, he was talking about God and something he said, "Would you like to learn more about God?" I said, "Well, sure, yeah." So Delphina and Tabitha emerged from the restroom and invited the four over to a nearby picnic table to talk. Karen Sinclair saw them head that way as she drove away. She later said, "I noticed the group beginning moving like a herd over to where Vider's direction, but I really didn't think much about it at the time," she told police. "I honked at Vider and waved, and we went on." At the table, Vider, and I know I'm saying that, I'm trying my best, it's Vidar, Vider, held Peter on his lap and began laying out the basics of Jehovah's Witnesses faith. Reisner got up and headed back to the car. Reisner, and that would be Joseph, headed back to the car. Mullins, and I'm going to keep on using their last names, but as of now, just for a reminder, it's Natasha Cornett, Karen Howe, Crystal Sturgill, Dean Mullins, Joseph Reisner, and Jason Bryant. So Mullins and Sturgill sat in the back seat, still there, so they were just talking kind of like the men, bored and not paying attention. Reisner reached inside. "We're going to do something," he whispered. "Just be ready." He walked back to Vedder, was still talking. Reisner pulled out the 9mm. He said, "I'm sorry about this." He said, "Everybody just be quiet and nothing's going to happen to y'all. All we need is your van." And so at the time, he was trying to offer him his keys, the money, just leave us here. But yeah, there was no avail. So not too long after that, the calls from 911, the calls to E911, both of them were reported gunshots on Pine Hollow Road. One caller, a neighbor, saw 2 vehicles pull in and only one leave. The other, a contractor working on a water tower, heard 2 bursts of gunfire, one right after another, followed by a muddled communication like children on a playground. Deputy Jeff Morgan pulled up around 9 p.m. All he and the supervisor saw at first was the headlights shining in their direction. He later said there was a car sitting on about a 45-degree angle facing us with the headlights on, recalling Morgan. Now, Chief Detective of Greene County Sheriff's Office, that's what immediately got our attention. The car, a blue Chevrolet Citation, had been abandoned, stuck on top of a stump in the mud. The deputies checked it out, and license plates was gone. But what was still there was the 4 bullet-ridden bodies laying in a ditch. A man and a woman, a boy and girl on top of them. So imagine who these are. Prosecutors later insisted that the bloody pile formed the shape of an upside-down cross. Then crossed the deputy's mind as they searched for some sign of life. Vida and Tabitha Lily's bodies lay rigid, their legs crushed and marred by tire tracks, like somebody ran them over. Tabitha's body twitched slightly on top of her father's, so the way they were laid was the two adults was laying with their feet towards the road, with the father had a daughter kind of like the diagonal across his chest, where the mother had the son across his chest. So the doctor spent the night trying to save her life, but was unable to save her at Texas, University of Texas Medical Center in Knoxville. Peter lay unmoving on top of his mother's corpse, his face buried in the mud. Morgan knelt down to turn him over, and a wail echoed through the clearing. So he was still alive too. Unfortunately, Valder and was the parents was not. When I touched the little boy, he started crying, Morgan said. I held him and just stayed there with him in the ditch until the ambulance arrived. I'm sure it was only a matter of minutes, but it seemed like it took forever for them to get there. What do you say to a child that's shot full of holes? I just tried to tell him that no one's going to hurt you. You're going to be okay. Yes, Peter would be the only survivor with one eye lost and several with severe spinal damage. Doctors conclude that he would have suffocated if he would have been there in the mud much longer. An autopsy by Dr. Blake, one of the East Tennessee's early deans of forensic pathology, determined that the family had been lying up along the ditch and shot with Lillelid. Vida most likely be the first to fall. The parents had not been the only. They had not only been shot, but they actually had been ran over. With Defina probably alive when the stolen van rolled over her. I'm having a hard time getting late. One shot probably the first struck the father in the right eye and would have knocked him unconscious immediately. He landed on his back to be shot at least 4 more times. 3 shots, all with a 9mm pistol, formed a nearly perfect triangle on his upper chest, a pattern that could only have been intentionally. Blake concluded 2 more shots, one with a 9mm and one with a 25 caliber pistol, had pierced the chest below right before below the nipple. Delphina had most likely been shot first in the left arm by the 9mm. The second bullet struck her in the left leg and shattered her thigh bone, bringing her to the ground. Neither would have been fatal, and the mother lived to be shot 6 more times. On the left side of her abdomen, Blake found another triangle pattern of gunshot wounds, almost identical to the pattern on her husband's chest. So they were kind of like aiming, making patterns on them, and the same caliber of a bullet. A gunshot to the middle of the abdomen by abdomen. I'm butchering that name. By 9mm, and 2 more left in the chest on the abdomen by the 25 caliber round. Out the list of wounds, Blake estimated that she could have lived as long as a half an hour, long enough to see her husband and both of her children shot. So Tabitha had been shot once in the head by a small caliber, which I'm not familiar with, which one's probably 25. Peter had been shot twice, once in the head behind the right ear, and once in the right eye, and once in the back, both with a small caliber. Pathologists later argued over whether the parents could have been holding the children when they fell or where the bodies were arranged that way. Morgan believes that the day they had been piled together was dumped, so they had stacked them. They initially did that. He goes, my opinion is they probably didn't fall that way. He said it did not look natural. So Huffman, the lead investigator on the case, still counts it as a godsend that the killer left the citation behind at the scene. Keep in mind there might have been no license plates, but the only other link between the family and the 6 strangers, detectives might have searched endlessly in vain. The car had no tags, but the vehicle's identification number was still in it, so they're able to look at the VIN number and write to Reisner's mother. So they found her. So she says she hasn't seen her son in 2 days. She didn't know where he was at, but she knew the names of the friends that she had been that he has been with, and they were all missing too. So they had left and took off. Like I said, I believe their initial plans was go to New Orleans, but after all this happened, and with the Lillin's van, they decided to head to Mexico. So what happened? They were stopped at the border. Shift was winding down when their van rolled up. The computer system was actually down at the time of the border when they crossed the border in Douglas, Arizona, at the U.S.-Mexican border, and crashed earlier in the day. It was Tuesday at 5 p.m., and officers weren't sure if they would be able to run record checks. The system came online just before the 1987 Dodge pulled back into the checkpoint. The van was headed back to U.S. Mexican agents at the interior checkpoint had sent it back with documents failed to show proper paperwork. So they had went through the U.S. border, but they could not get into Mexico. Now I read other places where they did make it into Mexico, and they had some issues, and the Mexican government sent them back. But either way, they weren't there long. So on the way back, that's when the system was up, and that's when they found the record. So by this time, everybody was already looking for this van. So the driver had resigned look as officers ran the license plate number and ordered everyone out. Busted. There was not a doubt in mind that we had been busted. Joe Reisner testified later. One agent asked Reisner who owned the vehicle. He shrugged and said he didn't know. A search of the van turned up toys, a car seat, and the Lillelid family photos. Cornett carried a wallet with a photo of Tabitha and a piece of Vitter's belt inside. So summer 1940 was scribbled on the back of the photo. My favorite girl. It was written on his photo. So Howe had a little kitty dowry lock on that had belonged to Tabitha. Sturgill had the key ring to Lillian's home. So each one of these people had trophies. These were trophies, said Bell, the prosecutors. They had taken trophies from these people they killed to remind them of what they did. So each one had something that belonged to the Lillelid family. So at the county jail, the booking officers asked Cornett her religious preference, and she said Satan. So anyhow, yeah, the Tennessee bill moved immediately for extradition and announced his plan to seek the death penalty for all four adults, which was, of course, was like I said, the four adults was Natasha, Crystal, Dean, and Joseph, which they all waived extradition and went back to Tennessee. But Karen and Jason, they reject. I don't want to say reject. I don't know what the exact word I'm looking for, but it took them a while to get there. So fit into a wave of shooters. So news of the arrest exploded nationwide. The name Tabitha Media, the same tabloid media culture that Oliver Stone satirized in The Natural Born Killers, lived up to his portrayal, fitting the story into a wave of narratives on school shooters, serial killers, and kids gone bad. Cornett's initial defense, by the way, it was a big friend. There was thousands of people waiting for him. They were really wanting to see these people and talk shit to them. Not talk shit to them, but really give them the peace of their mind. So Cornett's initial defense attorney, Eric Kahn, fed the frenzy by playing up the image of his client as a mental disturbed outcast with nowhere to turn but devil worship, supposedly to trying to get a bluster insanity plea. But Bell believes the true horror that captured the country's imagination lay in the random, pitiless nature of the killing, as casual and arbitrary as a lightning strike. The key, he said, could happen to anybody. This could be me. This could be me and my family at the rest stop on the interstate that you think that's the safest place in the world. So, outrage over the killing swept across East Tennessee and Knox County. A convenience store owner, actually, I saw pictures of this stuff. I'm going to try to find it, see if I could. It'll be on my social media, so if I can find it. But yeah, convenience store owner hung 6 nooses on a scaffold in front of his business. A crowd chanting "Burn in Hell" greeted the 4 adults when deputies escorted them back to Greene County. Morgan, the deputy who pulled Peter Lillelid from the mud, helped escort them to jail. So at the time, their whole thing was that they wanted to get the four on. They were looking for the death penalty, but they're afraid if they gave them death penalty, they had the two juveniles, because they were juveniles. They were not able to get the death penalty. So we're talking about Jason. So what they did was to take the death penalty off the table. They said, "Hey, if you plead guilty, we'll take that off, but probably life in jail." So that was their plan. So they all accepted. It never really went to a trial. They all, six of them, pled guilty. But on the penalty phase, everybody was trying to point to Jason Bryant that he was the sole shooter, because he was a juvenile at the time. He tried to convince him to take the fall because since he was a juvenile, he will be out 18. But without adults, they would probably, with the capital, they would get capital murder and probably get the death sentence. But because of the plea agreement, they did not get that. So, but of course, they all said that he did it until he got on the stand. He said he had nothing to do with it. It was actually Dean and Joseph who did all the killing. Now, a lot of people did say Joseph was it, but it was Joseph and Jason. So they've all give all kinds of conflicting sentencing stories about what happened. But more like what happened was, and only these six individuals know when they got there, they brung them to the ditch where some of them, the story states that Jason was the one who started shooting them. But here's their story the way they said it. They said they put in the van, and at the time, they were not going to kill nobody. They were just saying they want to take the van, but when they got there, that's when Jason went crazy. And on the way there, here's one of the things Natasha says she was trying to save him. Not trying to talk him out of it and to try to convince him, comfort him that nothing was going to happen. She stated that they were just going to take the car and leave him alone. And then when they got there and they took him out, even then Vider was trying to give him the keys and everything and say, "Please just let us go." And that's when Jason. This is what everybody but Jason was saying, that Jason started shooting with the 9mm, and once he ran out of bullets on the 9mm, he went back to the car and got that. But what he was saying was Joseph and Dean both knew, because it did look like there was two shootings, because with the 9mm and 25, so there was two shooters. And a side note, one thing I want to say is when they were on their way to the body where the Lillelid family was found, the mother was, because the kids were crying, they didn't know what was going on. So at the time, Delphina was actually kind of singing to him, where Jason Brown was getting really angry about this, was screaming and telling him to shut up. And at one point, Tabitha actually offered Karen some of her favorite chocolate, which was Hershey Kisses. So I don't think, and when they went there, everybody was in the van except for Crystal and Dean. So they were trying to say during the trial that they had nothing to do with it because they were in a different vehicle. It was Natasha, Karen, Joseph, and Jason that was involved in it. But through it all, the judge did not buy it. So, but like I said, nobody really knows besides these six people what happened there. If it was Jason who went crazy and shot them all. But either way, if it was Jason or Jason and Joseph or Joseph and Dean, the Lillelid family was lying up in the ditch where their life was in it, with only Peter the only survivor. So during court hearings, what happened during court hearings? By the way, Peter was eventually adopted by Vider's sister. There was a big custody battle with that, but ultimately, she ended up moving back to Norway with Vider's sister. So, and he has some difficulties, but he is doing very well, as best as he can, I guess, with the one eye. And as for the trial, well, all of them tried to plead mercy, but at the end of it all, the judge did not buy it all, and all of them ended up with life. With let me go say, all six of you, be gone with you, life with no chance of parole. So three counts of first-degree murder and one count of attempted murder on Peter, all consecutively. But yeah, they're not going to get out of jail. That's where they're going to be until the remainder of their life. And a lot of people are thinking say that's just like a death sentence because they go in, it just takes longer for them to die. But anyhow, there you go. So where are these individuals right now? So let's start with Karen Howe. She's convicted killer as a teen murder. She's still in county jail. Was denied the chance to have her case reopened, so they are not having it. A hearing was held Friday morning of the state in what is this? I'm reading something right now on the line, so I have to look at the date, and I don't see it. But anyhow, I'm sorry. Like I said, this is one of the things that I was planning on doing, and I found out how difficult it would be in 2013. But yeah, a hearing was held considering the case of Howe, who recently penned a letter asking for forgiveness from the Lillelid family while asking the judge to reconsider her life sentence. Because like I said, they all got life without parole. Her attorney had said a recent Supreme Court ruling that called juvenile life sentences unconstitutional could impact her case. By the way, Tennessee does not have that. There's a lot of states they tried to go through different states about like Louisiana, I think it was Kentucky, but since she was in Tennessee, Tennessee does not have it where juveniles under the age of 18 is unconstitutional for life in prison. So she was trying to say that, and of course with the free, Crystal, they're trying to get her freed because she's still in jail. There's actually a petition online. So pretty much with the Crystal and Jason, it's the same thing. They're trying to get them out of jail because at the time, not Crystal but Karen, they're saying because they were juveniles that they should get a rehearing. Karen and Jason, they should get a rehearing because it's unconstitutional for juveniles to have life in prison without chance of parole. But Tennessee does not have that law. So as Crystal, there's a petition right now at Care 2 Free Crystal. They're trying to get 1,000, but there's only 43 right now. They said she was wrongfully convicted because they're saying because she was not in the car at the time. But yeah, she was there, and any time she could have stopped it, prevented it anyway, but she chose not to. And so right now she has 43 supporters at the time. And as for Mullins, he's still trying to get it. He's also Edward. As for Mullins, I'm sorry, I'm looking around my notes, and this truck is really tight. Dean Mullins, who 19, he's also the potential Edward Dean Mullins, which is his name. Appeals the court denied a post-conviction relief denied. The issue's petition for review, rather the petitioner was denied the effective assistance of counseling, whether the petitioner's guilty pleas was knowingly involuntary entered, whoever the trial court erred by denying the petitioner claim of prosecutorial misconduct, whether the trial court erred by denying the petitioner's motion of severance, and whether the trial court erred by ruling that the indictment need not include the applicant's aggravating circumstances. The judgment was affirmed. You can stay your ass in jail. And of course, Joseph Reisner, he's still in jail, Mountain City, Tennessee, spending the rest of his life in jail. Now, finally, Natasha. You want to talk to Natasha? If you want to talk to Natasha right now, she is on a pen pal. You can write her if you want to. Natasha Cornett, 288309. And she says, I am a witty and a bit sarcastic. I try to find the funny in life. Laughter is my refuge from a world of gray. I am deep and introspective. And why am I having a hard time to read? Today, as I always do, some of y'all probably say, well, you fucking suck anyhow. You can, yeah. Anyhow, with Infinity, this is why I need a co-host, because this would be so much easier to be telling somebody a story. But anyhow, with the affinity of all things weird and outside the box, I love being in nature. Well, your ass is going to be in jail for the rest of your life now. No nature for you. Be it at the mountains or the ocean, so long as I'm outside, I'm secretly a romantic and believe in such whimsical notions as true love. I completed every class offered here, be educational or therapeutic. I have a cosmetology license. I am certified in core carpentry 1 and 2. I completed culinary arts. I have done 4 years of college working with BA. Why is she doing all this in prison, by the way? I don't know. She has life in parole without parole. So anyhow, enough with it. But yeah, if you want to write her, she's in Pikeville. She went to school in Pikeville, and her inmate number is 28839. So if you want to talk to her, go ahead. As for the Lillelids, they are buried in Knoxville, Tennessee. Well, like I said, Peter is in Norway, and the people I've looked around, seems anybody talk to him, but he's refusing to talk to anybody, which is fine. Let him live his life somewhere in Norway. Probably that's good. But yeah, Knoxville and Edgewood Cemetery. So if you find yourself in Edgewood Cemetery, why don't you pay the Lillian some respect and go visit them, take a picture. They have a nice memorial for them, for the family. So there you go. There's the Lilly family murder. If you're able to deal with me this long with all my babbling and my misreading and all that stuff, thank you. Well, like I said, this is something that when I first started doing this podcast, I wanted to try to do this, but I realized that it was pretty hard to do that with getting accurate information, a lot of information, and with there's only so much I could do with a 34-hour reset, with also with sleeping and everything. And but like I said, this solo podcasting is hard. Trying to talk it all and trying to look at a computer and talk. I know some people do it, but they also have like people on the sides that they could actually pretend to talk solo. When I talk to my wife, I could tell these stories all day long, but she don't want to be part of this. But anyhow, if you were able to bear my telling of this story, thank you, and last this long, I do appreciate it. Also, rate and review if you haven't already. I haven't had none in a while. Last one I had was a negative one. Said if you like people reading it, I'm not even gonna say her name, but anyhow, yeah, rate and review. I have a YouTube channel, Trucks Not Murder True Crime Podcast. Give that a listen to. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers so I can go live and show the different places where I stop at. And also iTunes, Apple iTunes. Please rate and review. But mainly at this moment right now, I really would like for you to share with friends, tell everybody about me. Let's build this up. Maybe with more listens, maybe more downloads, maybe I'll get more confident with this. Because right now I'm kind of in a slump right now, as you can tell by my voice. But I am not a quitter, so I'm not going away. Hopefully, there's your listeners to this, and this is who I do it for. And as I always say, you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with the 2x4. I'm out of here.